Thanks, Lee. E ka rakatera tēnā koto koto. Ka mihi nui kaya koto koto. Greetings to you all, Madam President, fellow Rotarians, visitors. Thank you for allowing me to introduce myself. My whakatoki today. Kia whakatomori te haere whakamua. My past is my present, is my future. I walk backwards into the future with my eyes fixed on my past. So that'll make sense by the end, okay? Sweet as. I'm the youngest. Serious, it will. I'm the youngest of three in a family of girls. I grew up in Sumner and Christchurch in a very Christian household, one Presbyterian parent and one Anglican, and both my parents are very similar. They're both Scottish Māori. So the Scots come in from the whaler era of life in New Zealand, and my dad is from Moiraki, which is Ngāi Tahu, if you don't know, and mum is Te Karaka, which is Tatanga Amahaki. However, the important thing about me and my whānau is mum. Good to know that the women are always the ones that are important. So mum was made profoundly deaf through illness when she was about 14 months old, at a time when, of course, there was no such thing as hearing aids and all sorts of other things in life that we now take for granted. So, kora Oliver, mō tō whakaro. I grew up in several communities. The deaf sign language community, because of mum. The hearing community, because of dad. The Pākehā community, because that's where we lived. And then the Māori community whenever we went home. So, you know, it's a good kind of standard upbringing in Sumner. Dad was a traveller, and so what was really unusual was that this woman, who is considered by most people incredibly disabled and incapable, and particularly since she was schooled during the school years, so she did not actually get a decent education, looked after all of us and turned out me and an educational psychologist and, you know, my big sister who's a counsellor. So what also happened was, of course, many trips to Gizzy to go see the whānau, many trips down south to go see the whānau. It's always, you know, doing all that. But most important of all, mum and dad really busy, and the driver for them was the work to develop the deaf community. All right? I went to school, that's what you do. I finished by 16, did an exchange. You fellas know it's a good thing to do. Came back to university and kind of slipped into social work. It wasn't really a planned approach, it was more like whatever was happening. I went to Napier, and then I met a part of my community that I'd never met, because my part of being particularly in Gizzy or down south was not about dealing with where the challenges have occurred for my community. And then I thought, oh, now I get the whispers from mum and dad. Now I get what their kind of stuff was about. I stayed in social work for a couple of years up in Napier. I've got very, very fond memories of working with some of the women I worked with there. Very, you know, their lives are hard, but there is resilience wherever you go in life. And I went on a short OE that meant I lived in London for about 16 years. Of course, I love the sense of life, the difference in community, because I'm pretty open to many communities, right? And what I did was develop an emerging area of social work that actually only 3 boroughs in Britain, or actually the UK, could do. And so I led the work on statutory social work with children with severe disabilities and mental health. Kura Janice, she knows all about this, she always heard me going on about this, and severe mental health with people with impairment. So that was about me going, oh yeah, we need new frameworks, we need to understand concepts like disableism, we need to understand that impact on the family right from the start, we need to understand a whole bunch of other things. So developed the frameworks, developed the teams, got a whole new thing going on, and I'm pleased to say that service change exists today. And that, in fact, my particular specialism, which I never get to practice anymore, obviously, but I was particularly interested in child protection with children with disabilities, their sexual abuse, the sexual abuse particular vulnerability with no language. That's a particular area that we don't recognise in New Zealand at all. We're not dealing with that work at all. And I did have a particular knack. I wouldn't have it now, but I'm trying to encourage people to voluntarily admit instead of being sectioned within the sign language community. However, the point was service design, service change, dealing in a new area that's much neglected and needs to be dealt with, and then the benefit you get from that for everyone. And that's about building on the family and building on the community. And the Department of Health Inspectorate came and gave us endless audits because of the work we were doing, but actually they did take those frameworks out across the rest of particularly England. That was good. So mid-30s, I was pretty much on top of the European game in that very small field I was in, and ended up pregnant and single. So what do? Obviously I come back here. That's what I do. As I kept saying, got to have the right passport, right? You've got to have the right passport for the kid. No, and in between, I had come back previously for 1 year to help mum because, as I said, illiterate housewife, no capability whatsoever. So her, along with Dad, they had organised to get the World Deaf Games to New Zealand. They came here in January 1989. Now, okay, nobody knows about them. They are the equivalent to Paralympics in status to the IOC. It's just they don't get the publicity. And they were nearly as large as the Commonwealth Games that happened the next year, so we were used as a prototype for the organising of it. So it was a great time. Okay, I get here. Oh, she's going to tell me to move. I couldn't find relevant work with what I knew, so I went into policy, went into learning about I went into the Ministry of Health, I stayed in mental health, the Mental Health Commission. That was fantastic work. But for the last 5 years, I've really kind of come home, and at Statistics New Zealand, I'm the Principal Advisor Māori, so I'm the lead for how we think about Māori information needs at Stats and across the government. And that's about telling a story that we have failed to tell. Our stats tell a story of deficit. What we don't tell is the story of strength and contribution, and that Māori-led development based within Māori leadership, which is what's happening in this country at the moment, is the way Māori and all of non-Māori will deal with what we are all worried about. We are all worried about the deficit, but actually the way forward is about community leadership. And so I'm there to make sure that we finally get the data to reflect the Māori worldview, and even just the climate change discussion. Indigenous populations are clear that our knowledge base is critical to sorting out and helping the debate about climate change. So, if you get it, what my life is about is what they gave me, community. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.